Venezuela fighters charged a U.S. supercarrier. The outcome was brutal.
At 9:18 a.m. local time, the calm over the Caribbean Sea broke without warning. 8 fighter jets were already in the air, flying north at nearly 520 miles per hour, climbing through 25,000 feet. They were heading straight toward a United States carrier group operating in international waters, just 70 nautical miles off the Venezuelan coast. On radar screens, the distance closed fast. 7 miles every minute. No radio calls. No course change. Just a direct line toward USS Gerald R. Ford, the largest and most advanced warship ever deployed by the United States. Instead of backing away, the Venezuelan fighters turned in tighter. 6 Su-30 jets led the formation, with 2 older F-16 seconds trailing behind. 8 aircraft against 1 carrier. On paper, it looked daring. In reality, it was a gamble. Inside the carrier's command center, alarms sounded. Radar tracks turned solid. This was no mistake, no lost aircraft, no routine patrol gone wrong. At this distance, every second mattered, and every decision carried weight. This was not an accident in the sky. It was a deliberate move, a test of limits, a message sent at high speed toward American steel. If you want to follow this confrontation as it unfolds, stay with us and subscribe now. This stretch of the Caribbean is not empty water. It is one of the most watched areas in the region. Commercial shipping lanes pass nearby. Coastlines are close. Radar stations on land and at sea run non-stop. When military aircraft move here, they are seen, tracked, and recorded within seconds. That is why this approach mattered. Flying toward a United States carrier group in this zone is not routine activity. It is a choice, a message, a way to test how close you can get before the response changes. For the other side, it is a way to measure reaction time, coordination, and resolve without firing a single shot. For Venezuela, the calculation was simple. The carrier was operating in international waters but close enough to be challenged. A fast approach could force the United States to react publicly. Even without weapons launched, the moment could shift headlines, raise political pressure, and create leverage. For the people on the carrier, the meaning was very different. This was not theory or signaling. It was 5,000 sailors living and working inside a floating city. When unknown fighters close distance at high speed, everyone feels it. Flight crews pause. Damage control teams move into position. Pilots know that if the call comes, they will be airborne in minutes. There is also no room for delay. At sea, there are no fences and no borders you can step behind. Decisions are made in real time. A late reaction is not a mistake. It is a risk to lives. This is why moments like this matter. Not because of what already happened, but because of how fast they can turn into something much larger. In these waters, a single move can redraw the entire situation. And that is why every screen, every headset, and every set of eyes inside the carrier group stayed locked on what would happen next. At first, it was just symbols on a screen. Then the symbols changed color, green to red. That shift meant pilots, real people, carrying real weapons. High above the carrier group, an early warning aircraft picked up the formation as soon as it pushed north. The track stayed clean. 8 aircraft, tight spacing, no hesitation. The data moved instantly across the network. No shouting, no confusion. Everyone saw the same picture at the same time. Inside the command center aboard USS Gerald R. Ford, the air went quiet. Orders were short, clear. General quarters was already set. Now it was about timing. On the flight deck, pilots were strapped in before the call fully finished. Engines roared to life. Deck crews locked in their positions. A yellow shirt pointed forward. A hand dropped. The first jet launched. Then another. Then 2 more. The deck shook as aircraft lifted into the morning sky. In less than 8 minutes, 16 fighters were airborne and climbing, spreading out, forming a wall far ahead of the carrier. Inside one cockpit, a pilot watched the range numbers tick down. 90 miles. 8 contacts still coming straight in. Their radars were on. That meant they were not hiding. It also meant they were easy to track. The pilot pressed the radio switch. His voice was calm. He asked for permission to engage. The reply came back almost immediately. Clear, direct, defensive rules in effect. Fire when ready. At that moment, the situation changed. This was no longer an approach. It was a confrontation. As the distance dropped below 80 miles, the hostile aircraft locked their systems toward the carrier. That action removed all doubt. Intent was now clear. A finger rested on the trigger. 2 seconds passed. Then the command was given. Missiles left the rails at extreme speed, accelerating away from the jets and into open sky. There was no explosion to watch, no sound to hear. Everything happened beyond sight. But on the screens, the first hostile track vanished. Then another. A third symbol flickered, then disappeared completely. The room stayed silent. No cheers, no relief. Everyone knew this was only the opening exchange, and once the first shot is fired, there is no turning back. And everyone understood the same thing at the same time. This situation was no longer under control. The ocean below looked unchanged. Calm water, clear sky. No sign of what was unfolding above it. The remaining hostile aircraft reacted late. Too late. Their formation broke apart as warning tones filled their cockpits. Chaff spilled into the air. Jets rolled and dove, trying to escape a threat they could not see. At these speeds, small choices matter. A slight turn, a delayed move, a second of hesitation. In modern air combat, that can decide everything. From the carrier group, the picture stayed stable. Sensors kept feeding updates, ranges adjusted, tracks refreshed. The system did not rush. It did not guess. It simply followed the math. Inside the command center aboard USS Gerald R. Ford, officers watched the displays without speaking. Training took over. Every move had been practiced hundreds of times. No one needed instructions now. Above them, United States fighters held their positions. They did not chase blindly. They let distance and timing do the work. Each aircraft stayed where it needed to be, guided by data rather than instinct. The hostile pilots pushed their engines harder. Fuel burned fast. Altitude dropped. The gap toward home airspace still stretched for miles. Another track blinked, then vanished. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of airflow and steady breathing inside helmets. No one celebrated. No one relaxed. Experience teaches that the most dangerous moment is when you think it is over. The last contacts tried to turn south. Full power, straight line, no deception, just speed. That told its own story. From the carrier group, the response stayed measured. No extra moves, no wasted effort. The goal was not pursuit. It was control. Every screen showed the same truth. The escalation was complete. One side was now reacting, not acting. Pilots checked fuel, spacing, and headings. No one spoke unless necessary. The silence carried more weight than any command. And once that balance shifts, it rarely shifts back. The distance kept shrinking. The sky stayed quiet. But everyone involved understood the reality. There was no path left to reset this encounter. Only the final outcome remained. This was no longer a warning. This was the decisive phase. For several seconds, the picture looked settled. Most hostile tracks were gone. The airspace ahead of the carrier appeared to be clearing. To an outside observer, it might have seemed finished. Inside the command center aboard USS Gerald R. Ford, no one assumed that. Experience teaches a hard rule at sea. The moment after success is often when danger hides. Then a new signal appeared. It was faint, brief, almost easy to dismiss. A weak return at low altitude, well south of the main engagement. It did not move like the others. It did not behave the same way. For a second, the room stayed quiet. Analysts leaned closer to their screens. The contact did not match the pattern of a damaged aircraft. It also did not match civilian traffic. What no one outside the carrier group knew was this. Some radar reflections are not aircraft at all. They are echoes, debris, or something meant to draw attention away from something else. The fighters overhead held their positions. No one chased, no one rushed. The system waited, watching how the signal behaved. Then it faded. Not from distance, not from speed. It simply vanished. That raised more concern than relief. When a signal disappears without explanation, it usually means one thing. Someone wanted eyes looking in the wrong place. The carrier group tightened its posture. Screens zoomed out. Sensors widened their search. Nothing was ignored now. No alarms sounded. No orders were shouted. But the tension rose again, sharper than before. Everyone understood that whatever came next would not follow the same pattern as what had already happened. And in moments like this, the quiet is never a good sign. The next 30 seconds felt longer than the entire engagement before it. Inside the carrier group, every sensor was pushed wider. The airspace, the sea surface, the electronic picture. Nothing was filtered out. The silence returned, heavier now, because everyone understood this was the point where surprises appear. Then the call came over the radio. Short, calm, precise. Multiple contacts reappearing. Same direction, lower altitude. The fighters above adjusted without discussion. Slight turns, small changes in spacing. No wasted movement. They did not rush forward. They held the line. On the screens inside USS Gerald R. Ford, the new tracks stabilized. These were not ghosts, not echoes. They were real again, moving fast, trying to break away before the picture fully closed. For a moment, no one spoke. The sound of the ship, the hum of systems, the steady breathing in headsets. This was the narrow window where one mistake could undo everything. A voice cut through. Clear authorization. Defensive engagement confirmed. There was no countdown, no dramatic pause. Missiles launched again, clean and controlled. No flare, no panic, just speed and direction. The jets never closed to visual range. They did not need to. On the displays, the tracks collapsed one by one. Not all at once, just enough to make the outcome undeniable. 3 seconds passed after the last contact disappeared. No one cheered. No one relaxed. This was not a victory moment. It was a confirmation. The sky above the carrier went quiet again. Pilots held position, scanning wide, waiting for any last move. Fuel levels were checked. Headings confirmed. Nothing changed. And that was the point. Control had been restored, and the situation was no longer moving in the other direction. And this is where the question shifts to you. If you think Venezuela crossed a line by pushing this far, press 1 inch the comments. If you think the United States response was too aggressive, press 9 and subscribe to follow what comes next. Because after a moment like this, both sides remember exactly how close it came. And they plan accordingly. When the air finally cleared, the carrier group did not celebrate. It did not slow down. It did not change course. Operations resumed almost immediately aboard USS Gerald R. Ford, because for the crew, discipline matters more than emotion. Search helicopters moved into position over the water. Emergency signals were located. Venezuelan pilots were recovered and transferred safely. No United States aircraft were damaged. No sailors were injured. From a distance, it looked calm again. But the meaning of what had just happened was already spreading far beyond the Caribbean. For Venezuela, the cost was immediate and visible. Several frontline aircraft were gone in minutes. Years of training disappeared in a single encounter. More importantly, a clear message had been sent back to command centers and political leaders. The limits had been tested, and the answer was unambiguous. For the United States, the outcome reinforced something planners already knew. Modern carrier groups are not isolated ships. They are moving networks. Sensors, aircraft, ships, and people all connected, reacting faster than any single pilot or commander ever could alone. But the ripple goes beyond hardware. Encounters like this shape decisions that come later. They change how often aircraft fly, how close ships approach, how much risk leaders are willing to accept next time. Even when no one is hurt, memory remains. Sailors aboard the carrier will remember how quickly routine turned serious, how silence replaced noise, how a few minutes demanded complete focus. Those moments stay with people long after the ship sails on. And for the region, the lesson is clear. Close approaches carry consequences. Signals sent in steel do not stay local. They echo through planning rooms, budgets, and future orders. This confrontation ended without bloodshed, but it was not meaningless. It was a warning written in speed, distance, and restraint. The carrier continues its mission tonight. The skies are quiet again, but everyone involved knows this was not the end of the story. It was a preview, Next time, the warning may come faster, the distance may close sooner, and the margin for calm decisions could be measured in seconds rather than minutes. And when that moment arrives, there will be no time left for hesitation.